So, I'm here to finish the job that I started last time, which is to chronicle all the major updates in Minecraft up to 1.20. Last time, apparently I got way too much into detail and the video was a whole lot longer than I meant it to be. So we only got halfway through all the major updates, not even to 1.14, the update that I last really played. So I'm not going to waste any time for an intro and we're going to get right into things. And without further ado, let's continue with 1.11. Minecraft Update 1.11 is where we last left off. A whole lot of ones if you ask me, but this update was nicknamed the Exploration Update and was released November of 2016, where, if you'll remember from last time, 1.10 was released in June of 2016. Okay, so full disclosure, I'm going to be dropping the changes portion of this because last time there weren't really any significant changes, and we'll be saving a lot more time this way. Plus, if there's really a change I want to mention, then I'll just mention it. Alright, let's continue. The new blocks include observers, which are redstone devices that observe changes in front of it. It's not exactly rocket science. As well as shulker boxes. Now, these puppies are pretty great because they act as portable storage. They're essentially chests, but the contents don't spill out when you break them, so you can carry them anywhere. Now, they're made from shulkers, the enemy, which are in the end cities, so you'll have to beat the game to get these in survival. Speaking of survival commodities, the Totem of Undying allows players in survival or adventure mode to cheat death, refilling their health once after they technically die. They drop from the new mob Evokers, who will summon Vexes, which are basically just ghosts and they're not fun to deal with. But the Totem of Undying is definitely worth it, especially in hardcore, where if you die for good. If you don't have this item, of course. The Evokers are actually part of a new series of enemies called the Illagers, who look like, well, sick villagers. It's not exactly rocket science either. There's also Vindicators, the Here's Johnny of Minecraft, and normal Illagers. All of them are hostile. Also, llamas are a thing now. Woo! And you can ride these llamas too. You can ride them to where the new item Exploration Maps will lead you. Yeah, that was a great segue. They're obtained from cartographers and lead you to ocean monuments or the new Woodland Mansions. I am nailing these transitions. Woodland Mansions are basically the home of Illagers and they are shockingly rare. The final new things are the addition of cursed enchantments, which are the enchantments you don't want. They include Binding and Vanishing. Binding means you can't unequip an armor piece until it breaks completely, and Vanishing means it will disappear if you die. So hope you don't accidentally enchant that onto your tools and armor. Although in hardcore the Curse of Vanishing probably wouldn't be too bad since you can't die anyway. But hey, that's it for 1.11. Moving on, 1.12 comes next, nicknamed the World of Color Update, which added a whole lot of colorful additions, literally and figuratively, to the game and was released in a reasonable 7 months on June of 2017. Beds can now come in all the colors of the rainbow instead of just red. Concrete powder is now a thing, which, in addition to being colorful, also is another block to act like sand and gravel, i.e. falling when there's no blocks underneath. But when concrete powder touches water, it turns into just concrete, which is a whole lot sturdier and won't fall to mere laws of physics like gravity. The increased variants continue with glazed terracotta made from smelting normal colored terracotta. Terracotta, by the way, is just the new name for hardened clay, introduced in 1.6. Glazed terracotta has all sorts of wacky patterns and weird designs. And arrow. A new illager type was added, the Illusioner. This man will shoot at you while also creating duplicates of itself. Oh, and parrots! That's some color I can get behind. They honestly don't seem to have a point, but they can be tamed and dance to music on the jukebox, so it's a win in my book. The achievements are replaced with advancements and are honestly just really overhauled overall. That almost rhymed. Finally, it looks like the recipe book was in its early stages here, which shows you how to craft things and is immensely helpful for newer players. Oh, and shulker boxes can now be dyed different colors. That's actually about it for all the new additions. Maybe adding all the different color variants to so many things took a lot of time. Who am I to judge? The 1.13 version is the following update, nicknamed the Aquatic Update, made a full year after the last update in July of 2018. Because of that time, this is a pretty big update, so strap in. We now get bluer ice, but that's not all. There's also coral, which comes in 5 different flavors of blue, purple, red, yellow, and brain. Plus, they can also die too, looking all gray and dreary. It's kinda sad if you think about it, but we don't have time to think! Kelp is now a thing, which is actually pretty great because it basically gives an infinite food source if you buy an ocean. Prismarine now has the stair and slab variant, and also sea pickles! Need I say more? You can strip logs of their bark, which is only of decorative use. And there's also turtle eggs, acting as one of only 3 types of eggs that a person can obtain in survival. Speaking of turtles, turtles are now in Minecraft. I am so good at segueing. Look at them, they're so cute. Also, they drop scoots. Other new mobs include dolphins, drowned, the ocean variants of zombies, and phantoms. Phantoms are actually pretty interesting as they were the first mob added as a part of the then new annual Minecraft mob vote, in which the community got to vote on which of 4 mobs they wanted added into the game. Phantoms will appear after 3 days of not sleeping and start attacking you, so it incentivizes sleeping more. As we all should. In the item category, we have new things such as buckets of fish, which means you can now fish the old-fashioned way, nautilus shells, phantom membranes, potion of the turtle master giving slowness and resistance, turtle shells made from scoots, and the trident, which is a pretty fun weapon that can be thrown like a javelin. Exploration maps can now also show buried treasure, which can be found in the new structure Shipwrecks. Finding the buried treasure, you can get many wonderful things, such as the new Heart of the Sea, which is used to make the conduit, which when placed will give you plenty of great buffs, like night vision, increased mining speed, and being able to breathe underwater when near it. Oh, and I suppose I haven't mentioned it yet, but you swim like this now, instead of being in the horribly inefficient form before. Amongst some of the new enchantments are Riptide, which will launch the player in the air if they're in water or the rain, as well as Impaling, which does extra damage to sea creatures, which I guess just means fish and guardians? I don't know, it seems kind of pointless to me. Finally, the last thing I'll mention is that it now requires Phantom Membrane, the stuff that phantoms drop, to repair the elytra. There's a bunch more stuff, but for the sake of time, we'll leave it there with the highlights. And we're finally here to 1.14, the last update that I played through before getting back into Minecraft. This is called the Village and Pillage update and was released in April of 2019. We're just gonna go down the list alphabetically, adding appropriate details as we go because it's long. Bamboo, which can be used to make sticks, and the new scaffolding. It's a semi-solid platform, the Mario speak. Barrels, which are just chests, bells, blast furnaces, faster furnaces for minerals, campfires, cartography tables used for maps, go figure, composters, which I didn't know this, but can be used to take excess crops and turn them into bone meal, fletching tables, which I still don't know the point of, the cornflower and wither roads, the latter of which being dropped from mobs specifically killed by the wither. So that's metal. Grindstones used to remove enchantments, a jigsaw block which can only be retrieved in creative mode and is something I never knew existed. Lanterns, the same as torches but more decorative and can be placed under ceilings. Lecterns, to put written books on, looms for making funky banner patterns, smithing tables, which I also don't know what they do, smokers, faster furnaces for food, and stone cutters, to make stone things, aptly enough. That's a lot. Signs now have different wooded variants. There's a new food source in the form of sweet berries. This is actually part of the new annual mob vote, the winner being foxes. Foxes are cute little animals that'll steal berries from the berry bush. Crossbows were added, which act basically like bows except cooler. Black dye was added, which I honestly thought was already in the game. Leather horse armor 2 was added, as well as suspicious stew, which gave a different effect based off of the flour mixed in with it. New mobs include cats, which are different from ocelots because now ocelots can't be tamed and only cats can. The aforementioned foxes, brown mushrooms, and pandas for goodness sake, which can sneeze funnily enough, pillagers, an illager who wields crossbows, ravagers, behemoths that have 50 hearts of help, yikes, and finally wandering traders, which will give you completely random exotic traits that are mostly useless, to be honest. New structures and such include bamboo forests, where, unsurprisingly, bamboo and pandas are found, pillager outposts, which are towers with, you guessed it, pillagers, and new variants for villages depending on where they are located, like snowy and desert, for example. But wait, there's more! Raids can now happen, triggered by going into a village with the bad omen effect, in which a bunch of illagers will raid a village. And when you successfully defend against a raid, you get the hero of the village effect, which makes the villagers give you some of their items for free. One last thing before we move on, I just thought this was interesting. Apparently in update 1.13, there was a glitch that you could get dolphins to wear armor, which is amazing and so metal, literally. But yeah, they patched it in this update. Sadness. 1.15, the Buzzy Bees update, was thankfully a smaller update being released in December of 2019. The most obvious addition is that of the namesake, bees. Since there's honestly not that much more to this update, I can actually go a little bit more in depth, which is fair because bees are complicated, and I'm not just talking about the impossibility of this chonky boy flying. They live in the new bees nest block, and up to 3 of these chonky bumbles will fit inside one nest, don't ask me how. They remain neutral until attacked, similar to zombie pigmen, but placing a campfire underneath their nest will apparently make them passive. They are considered an arthropod, so the enchantment Bane of Arthropods works against them. Bees can be led and bred by flowers, fittingly enough. And speaking of which, flowers are how bees pollinate, same as in real life. And the pollination can accelerate crop growth, and once returned to the nest, fill the nest with honey, which can be grabbed via a bottle for bottled honey, which gives 3 bars of hunger and negates the poison effect, or sheared to get honeycombs, which are used to make honeycomb blocks, which are entirely decorative. Honey blocks are now a thing, which are stickier than slime and will reduce speed and jump height when walking across them. And, yeah. Aside from new achievements, that's about it. The rest of the update is focused on fixes and small changes to enhance the gameplay experience. This one's honestly a nice breather for the ones to come. Our next major update decides to focus its time on the Nether, nicknamed the Nether Update. Version 1.16 was released on June of 2020, so we're past the pandemic, guys. Wow. Where to even start? This update revamped the entire Nether, adding new biomes, mobs, ores, and more. I'll start with the biomes and go from there. In addition to the normal Nether region, we now have the Basalt Deltas, Soul Sand Valleys, Crimson Forests, and Warped Forests. With that comes a whole lot of new blocks and items. Again, I'll just list them off, adding details as I go. Basalt is added, Blackstone, Gilded Blackstone, which can drop gold, Crying Obsidian, Shroom Lights, and Soul Soil, a non-slow version of Soul Sand. More blocks include Crimson Fungi and Warped Fungi, Crimson and Warped Nylium, I think, and Crimson and Warped Roots, all found in their respective new biome. But even better, these 2 new biomes have their own wood variant, having some really colorful new wood. And without the ability to dye wood, this is pretty cool. Plus, the one thing that I haven't mentioned up until now that really changes Minecraft, the ancient debris. This material is only found in the Nether, and by collecting 4 netherite scraps from these blocks, you can make the netherite ingot. A brand new ore to craft better armor than diamond, and better tools that are more effective and durable for anyone who can find these rare items, provided you're not game theory.
But not only is netherite armor a visual downgrade, it's also just a terrible functional idea.
Because they disagree. Also, less importantly, gold can be found in the Nether too. There's also a lot of items that can be crafted with the new stuff too, like chains, lodestones, which can make compasses point towards them, quartz brick, respawn anchors, which allow you to respawn in the Nether where previously you couldn't, soul campfires and soul torches, bluer and dimmer versions of the normal, warped fungus on a stick, used for a new mob we'll get to later, and the new music disc, Pigstep, which might be playing in the background. Without getting too in-depth, let's move on to the new mobs, such as the Hoglins, basically the Nether's beefed up version of a boar, piglins, basically a not zombified version of the pigmen, zoglins, which are zombified versions of hoglins after being in the overworld for a bit, and striders, which are a weird creature that can walk on lava and be ridden and led by warped fungus on a stick. The piglins you can actually barter with gold, similar to villagers with emeralds, but most of their trades similarly are also pretty garbage, except for the ender pearls, which is a feature that is very helpful in speedruns of Minecraft. There was no new mob vote this year, unfortunately. Finally, we'll end off with the new structures, like the Bastion Remnants, where you can find all sorts of loot, like Pigstep, nether fossils, which are like rib cages made from bone blocks, and ruined portals, which are unfinished nether portals that can spawn in the overworld that come with a free little chest just for funsies. There's still more to this update, but in the interest of time, we're gonna move right along. To Update 1.7, the Caves and Cliffs Update, Part 1, released in June of 2021. Yeah, so this is the only two-part update, because the devs were feeling the pressure of COVID and decided to split these two into two different updates, 1.17 for Part 1 and 1.18 for Part 2. With that in mind, let's talk about Part 1. Let's start with the amethyst pockets, or geodes as they're officially called, that can be found underground, bearing many amethyst-related things like amethyst buds, amethyst cluster, amethyst blocks, budding amethysts, and amethyst shards, all of which will slightly shine. Calcite and smooth basalt will encase these geodes. Amethyst can be used to make the new tinted glass, which is just what it sounds like, and the new spyglass, which lets you zoom into things that are far away. Lush caves are pretty grassy and mossy areas that you can find underground that contain the new moss block, moss carpet, spore blossoms, which are like decorative items that can be placed on the ceiling, glowberries, which you can eat, big drip leaves, and small drip leaves. Lush caves are also special for being able to house one of the new mobs, axolotls. These cute and fan-favorite mobs are fairly rare, but can be caught via bucket. They can also play dead. So, yeah. Also, above almost every lush cave are the new azalea trees, which have the azalea leaves and can have roots and rooted dirt below it. Dripstone caves are the last new cave addition, which contain, as you'd expect, dripstone, the stalactite and stalagmites of Minecraft, as well as dripstone blocks. However, even though that's all the new biome-like cave parts of the update, it doesn't mean we're done with the underground. Ores were remastered to drop a raw material version instead of the block itself, which still had to be smelted in the same way, but was a pretty cool updated look. Whew. Tough, another underground material can be found, and an entirely new ore was added. But unlike netherite, copper here isn't really that useful, which is a shame because it's about as prevalent as iron. They're used to make spyglasses and lightning rods, and that's kind of it. Of course, they can also be used for their variants like blocks of copper, cut copper, copper stairs, copper slabs, and the oxidized and waxed versions of each of those. Glow squids were added, which are like bioluminescent variants of squids that can be found underground. They drop glowing ink sacs, which can be used for the new glowing item frame. Finally, candles were added. Woof, that's a lot. And there's still more. There's still the cliffs part of this update to talk about. But there's honestly not much for this part. The new mob goats were added, spawning in the mountains and being able to ram into things willy-nilly and being able to jump up to 10 blocks high. This mob is insane, actually, now that I'm researching it. Powdered snow was also added, which is snow that causes players to sink into them and start taking damage, unless you're wearing leather boots. And that's about it. It is important to note that lush caves, dripstone caves, and their related material weren't able to naturally spawn until 1.18, but you could still access them via the creative menu. Speaking of 1.18, Minecraft version 1.18 is part 2 for the Caves and Cliffs update, releasing in November of 2021. Funnily enough, this update doesn't contain a whole lot of new stuff, more changes than anything. Let's start with the things that aren't part of the namesake. You know, I'm just mixing it up a little. There's a new music disc called Other Side that, if I can, I'll let play in the background during this section so you can hear it. Also, when updating a world to a newer version, it will now seamlessly blend. So now on to the rest. For one, the cave systems that in the last update that couldn't be naturally generated now can be, and caves can now pretty much be randomly flooded, which I actually encountered in my own Minecraft playthroughs. Plus, skulk sensors will now spawn, which sense the sound you make, even walking, to output a redstone signal. However, wool will negate the sound. The biggest addition is now there are 6 mountain sub-biomes. Meadow, which is what it sounds like, Grove, a snowy slopey thing, Snowy Slope, which is an even more snowy slope, I guess, Jagged Peak, basically natural stone spires, Frozen Peak, slightly less jagged ice spires, and the Stony Peak, just a peak of a mountain with a lot of stone. And yeah, that's pretty much it, except for the new commands and advancements. Changes include a whole bunch of texture changes. Enchanting tables will now emit light. Endermen will now be hurt by splash water bottles. Horses and donkeys and mules will follow players with golden carrots. Plus, the height limit has been increased to 384 blocks. Actually, that's about it for impactful changes. I honestly thought there'd be more. Maybe. I didn't need to do this whole extra section thing. Maybe. So, Minecraft had its next major update in June of 2022, called the Wild Update. We're back to big updates in 1.19, unlike the last one, so don't you worry. The biggest new addition is that of the Deep Dark, which was apparently planned for 1.18, but was delayed to be part of 1.19. And it's a new cave biome found at the, quote, deepest depths of the world. The surface of this cave biome contains patches of skulk, which sounds familiar if you'll remember from 1.18. Skulk only drops experience when mined, unless you have Silk Touch, and has a weird quality of spreading when a nearby mob dies next to a Skulk Catalyst, which is another new block that does the spreading of the skulk. Skulk veins act the same as snow, except, you know, gross and skulky. The last skulk-related thing is the Skulk Shrieker, which when activated by a skulk sensor, so even walking near it, it will give the player the darkness effect, which is a new effect by the way. But when activated 3 times, it summons the Warden. The Warden is the newest, most powerful mob in the game, being able to kill you in 2 hits, even with full diamond or netherite armor, and having more health than even the Wither. Yeah, more health than an actual boss. It detects you via sound, same as the sensors, which means that invisibility potions won't save you from this monster, so you'll have to sneak pretty much anywhere with it around until you're caught. In which case, just run. There is no chance of you winning that fight. But if you do manage to somehow win that fight, you're rewarded with a single Skulk Catalyst. So like, there's really no reason to fight this guy. You'll also have to watch out for ancient cities, which generate in the Deep Dark, and are like dilapidated underground cities crawling with the Skulk stuff. But also chests containing the normal natural chest stuff, as well as some new items like the new Swift Sneak enchantment, only available for leggings, Echo Shards, and Disc Fragments. Echo Shards are used to make the new Recovery Compass, which points you in the direction of your latest death, and Disc Fragments are used to make the new Disc 5, which I would play in the background like I did with Other Side, but it's not really a song. It's just a series of sounds. Here, I'll play you a sample so you know what I mean. And that's everything that you can newly find down in the Deep Dark. So on to the other big new addition, Mangrove Swamps. Since I spent so long on the Deep Dark, I'll keep the Mangrove Swamp part brief. Forgs! They added forgs! Okay, you got me. There's more. The Mangrove Swamp biome really adds 3 new things with it. Frogs, as I mentioned before, mangrove wood, and mud. Frogs, whose baby form is actually a tadpole and not just a smaller version of itself, like pretty much every other mob, can jump 5 blocks high and swim surprisingly fast. Mangrove wood is a new purpley pink wood type, and mud is just mud. I'm pretty sure it's just decorative. Lastly, the new mob vote mob, the Allay. We haven't had one of these in a while. The Allay are these sprite-like creatures that, if given an item, will find any other of those items nearby and bring them back to you. And that's about it for 1.19 actually. And at last, we've arrived at the latest update to date, Minecraft 1.20. The Trails and Tales update. It was released in June of 2023, so only 3 months ago actually, if this video goes up when I think it will. I'm sure this update has already been covered to death already, so I'll try to keep this one brief. The main new addition involves the new world generation, Trail Ruins, by making new item brush with a stick, copper, and a feather. You can brush away these new blocks in the Trail Ruins, suspicious gravel, and suspicious sand. Brushing them away will reveal a bunch of random objects, but the ones we care about are the armor trims and pottery sherds. Yes, sherds. That's a knowledge bomb you can drop on your friends. Using armor trims makes your armor a whole lot sleeker and more modern looking, while the pottery sherds can be used to make decorative pots, if you couldn't guess. The mob vote winner this year was the Sniffer, which is a bushy boy who will sniff out and dig for random stuff in the ground, including the new flower, torch flowers, which can be used to breed sniffers. But like the turtle, they will lay an egg instead of having a mini version of themselves. The other new mob, the camel, can be ridden by up to 2 players and climb 1.5 blocks at a time. There's also another new biome, the Cherry Grove, which are home to cherry trees, which are a pink variation of wood. Lastly, bamboo can now be made into a wood variety, so you can have another new variation to decorate your world. The boat version even looks like a raft, so that's fun. But yeah, that's about it for the abbreviated version of 1.20. And that's about it for all the updates as a whole. This two-parter took me a whole lot longer than I thought it would. Like, legitimately, 20 to 25 hours worth of work went into this. For everything from researching to editing. This is a whole lot bigger than any of my other videos up to this point. So I sincerely hope you enjoyed, and maybe you learned something about Minecraft. I mean, I know I had a lot of fun going through the history of Minecraft. All 20 major updates, and the last decade of the best-selling game of all time. But with that in mind, I do have to end this video. So, thank you for watching. Bye!